If we look at the broader picture, the situation in Syria is now reached crisis point. You have the regime which is promising reform but delivering nothing, carrying on with the repression. You have outside forces being backed by Turkey and others, I'm sure NATO countries, though we don't have the proof as yet, who are arming rebels and trying to make it into a total civil war. And then you have the opposition, which is largely inside the country, which is not in favor of foreign intervention, which wants to have a national patriotic struggle themselves to get rid of Assad. So it's a situation which remains confused, but which can't carry on like this indefinitely.
So what help can the Arab League observers bring? I mean, the opposition's claiming that the observers are not being allowed to move around freely. What's the point of letting them in if that's the case?
Well, we don't know what is going on, where they're being let in and where they're not being let in. But the letting in the observers was to show the Arab League, which, by the way, has been one of the most pathetic organizations in the Arab world for a long, long time, doing nothing on Palestine, doing nothing to prevent the war on Iraq, and now it's being used as an NGO by the West. So I don't take the Arab League as such too seriously. Obviously, the Syrians let in the monitors to show that they had nothing to hide or thinking they'd find nothing. So we shall see what happens of it. The main thing to stress is that we need a negotiated settlement in Syria, which permits a new constitution, which has multi-party rule, and which enshrines democratic freedoms. We do not want a Western intervention as in Libya, which with each passing day, the information coming out of Libya shows the disaster that that country has become.
What are your thoughts about the Syrian government's gesture releasing 800 prisoners that have been detained over the past 9 months during the unrest since it started? I mean, do you think that's a sign that the regime is wanting now to make concessions, or does it prove that leaders were just mistreating their people?
It might be too little too late, in my opinion. I think what has characterized the Ba'athist regime in Syria has been its stupidity, its brutality, and its arrogance. Incapable of pushing through a reform program, they lied, they said they were going to, then they drew back. That indicates to me that the Ba'athist leadership is divided, and that Bashar Assad is actually not a strong president. Whether he can now pull his people behind him for a negotiated settlement that democratizes the country and that opens up the possibility of him being out of power, if they don't do that, the situation will get worse.
Just focusing one other aspect of the Arab observers' visit, do you think that the Arab League observers might now acknowledge armed opposition extremists operating in Syria in a way that foreign nations have seemed reluctant to so far?
Well, I don't know why they've seemed reluctant to, because most of the nations which have seemed reluctant to notice that are the ones who are supplying the weaponry and arming people. I mean, the Qataris and the Saudis have been very active here, and so is Turkey. So the big question is whether they can push the United States, this is the main power in the world, to organize an intervention in Syria. And here you have, ironically enough, pressure from the Israelis on the United States saying they don't particularly want change in Syria. So I think it's a situation which is fraught with difficulties on all sides. My big concern is the Syrian people. Too many Syrian people have died in recent months as a result of the brutality of this regime, and that needs to be stopped rapidly.
Thank you for your thoughts on the programme. Much appreciated. Tariq Ali, author and Middle East expert, joining us on the line there from London.